Greetings, everybody, and a very happy Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday, 22nd of July. It's time for Live at the Waterhole. We are live and interactive for the next 2 hours, and I will be your host today, Ben Coley. So please do send in your questions and comments as always. Love to hear what you're up to. If you have any questions, what's the weather like where you are? I know we've had some inclement conditions across the world of late from our viewers. But it's always wonderful to hear from you, so please do get in touch. But we've started this afternoon at Tau Game Lodge in Madikwe with a herd of waterbuck, doing exactly as their name suggests and wading in the water, seemingly oblivious or at least very trusting of the resident crocodiles, which we know are here. But such is the state at the moment, deep into the dry season, of course, that we are seeing these waterbuck potentially taking chances to get at some of that aquatic vegetation which is under the surface. You can see them dipping their muzzles under the water and pulling out whatever it is that they have found in there that they deem to be more nutritious, unsurprisingly, than what is surrounding them on the land. But it is a tough time of year for these animals, and it is always incredible how they manage to even make it through the year. How they're able to extract enough nutrition from that dry grass is still a bit of a mystery, but that's why they have adapted, of course, very efficient stomachs and different mechanisms of processing that fibrous and hard to digest food. I know we saw them doing this a couple of days ago and the crocodiles were on the bank. It'd be interesting to see if they are also out sunning themselves in this sort of unspoken truce that is happening this time of the year. Good afternoon to you as well, Elson Molamu. Nice to hear from you. Thanks for sending in your message, and I hope you are looking forward to 2 hours of visits to various cameras across southern and eastern Africa. Who knows what we will have in store today, but there is only one way to find out, and that is to stay tuned. And hello as well to Penelope Kenyon. Nice to see you back again. I'm glad that you are enjoying this sighting and hopefully the rest. A couple of maybe tentative waterbuck that have decided not to go into the shallows. I'm having a quick look as the camera pans to see if we can spot our crocodiles. Well, there is one. But there's at least 2 or 3 of this size, possibly more, who do inhabit this waterhole in front of Tau Game Lodge, and they have taken antelopes before. So I can't help but think this is a little bit of a risk for the waterbuck, but say risk-reward, I suppose. Hello, Mercedes Bean as well. Good to hear from you. Also, Fuzzy Dunlap saying happy Tawny Tuesday. We will see if there is any tawniness in store. As always, probably unlikely this time of the day to have any cats coming down for drink, but you never know. And maybe, if circumstances dictate, we could at least stop in at the Hoodsbury Endangered Species Centre and catch up with our little cheetah cubs. If they come out and play, that might be as close as we can do for you, but who knows? This crocodile is a little tawny. We have seen this one before. It's very light coloration that this one has in comparison to a lot of the other ones. Just an absence of the same amount of melanin as the others. Sebastian, you're saying great to start with the waterbuck and amazing to see them feeding on water vegetation. I would agree with you. It's not something that I've seen very often. I have seen it before, but I think it is only done in times of severe stress. I've no idea of the nutrient content of whatever that vegetation is that they are finding, but certainly good for moisture levels. And as I keep saying, it's going to be better than that dry, fibrous grass. Helga, you're saying Tao is the place with the most laid-back crocs. Yes, and very trusting animals. But let's see what other animals are afoot at our other cameras. I think we're going to zoom east to Mantis Founders Lodge and see who's coming down for a drink. Ah, we may have just missed the giraffe. Don't go and hide behind that little outcrop. Hopefully it'll at least pop its head up and we can see him or her. I think possibly a her from what I saw. Ah, multiple giraffe, in fact. Yes, well, this is a her, and then a he, and then probably another her. Difficult to say for sure. Wildlife lady, good afternoon to you as well. You're saying cuddly crocodiles. For what it's worth, I wouldn't recommend cuddling crocodiles as something to do in one's spare time. I don't think that will end very well unless you intend on wrestling them. But as a general rule of thumb, best not to cuddle crocodiles. Should you ever cuddle a crocodile, or should you ever find yourself in that situation, though, remember you can, just with your bare hands, hold a crocodile's mouth shut. Please now do not go out and try that for yourself. But they have incredibly strong muscles for closing the jaw, for snapping shut and holding on to prey. Very death-like grip, but very weak muscles that actually open them. So you may have seen those very brave souls who do sort of capture crocodiles and you can pin their jaws together, so they say, with their bare hands. I've seen it done. I have not tried it, nor am I willing to do so.
Now this leopard that we're looking at is known by the name of Hlalamba.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
Would you like to know at what age a buffalo calf gets its horns? These are questions that you can ask me in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature. We are here with a male leopard.
Dominate the waterhole when he is there. I see there's just the inkling of the back of a zebra in between that giraffe's leg as well. So nice to see some other animals down here in the Eastern Cape. But it sounds like we do have some elephants up at Oldonio. Let's go see if 1 ton is among them. Well, that is not 1 ton. He is very recognizable with his one very long tusk. What looks like a youngish bull who has the whole waterhole to himself at the moment, which doesn't happen very often, to be honest, up in Oldonio. Normally a hotbed of activity. Time for a bit of a dust bath, perhaps. Look at him just investigating the dung there, checking social media updates, getting all the information from whoever it was who deposited that. If it's of particular interest, we may see him sniff it and then place his trunk in his mouth and exhale. Elephants, like most other animals, do have that vomeronasal organ, that organ of Jacobson or Jakobson, but they can't do the characteristic phlegm and grimace that we see, for example, in the cats or in rhinos, where you see them exposing their gums, kind of pulling their lips back, opening that organ to analyze those smells. So an elephant will usually get his trunk very, very close to the source of the smell, inhale those scent particles, and then either blow them directly into the organ, or even actually, particularly with urine and dung, they will actually dab the tip of their trunk on whatever it is that is giving off that smell, and then pretty much sort of apply it to the organ, enabling them to decode all of that species-specific information about whoever did deposit it. Good afternoon, Michelle. You're in Dubai. And you're saying that you love feeling a little bit at home. I assume then you are South African by origin. But yes, do relive some of these wonderful pieces of wildlife we have here. Oh, here comes some zebras. Take advantage of the quiet period up there at Old Donio, but we've zoomed down to Tau to see an amusing butt scratch from a warthog, always entertaining. I was in Dubai last year, actually, Michelle, and did get to see some of the local wildlife. I did go into the desert once or twice. Amazing that things can survive under those conditions. But I got to see some camels and various other antelope species whilst I was out there doing some astronomy training for some desert guides. Very nice to refamiliarize myself with the northern hemisphere sky, not something I get to do very much, and got to see the great bear and the small bear and Polaris and Cassiopeia and Cepheus and Draco, a lot of those constellations that we are unable to view from down here in the southern hemisphere due to, no offense intended, but the spherical nature of the Earth. Okay, Warties have gone. Let's head back up to Old Domino. I've got some warthogs here and some zebra. But it was very interesting. I did a lot of research on Arabic star lore and constellation mythology and things, and always interesting to see the differences and the similarities of the stories between cultures. There are various camels and things up in the sky, and learning what constellations, what stars, what asterisms, what shapes were associated with the changes of seasons and changing of weather patterns, which of course has been so important for people throughout the ages. I mentioned yesterday, or a couple of days ago when I was on, that Orion's belt is seen by the Bushmen as zebras, and in other African cultures they were seen as warthogs. So we have two representations of Orion's belt drinking currently at Old Donio. Dolly Flop from the UK. Excellent name, by the way. You're asking how often does a crocodile need to feed? Well, it's a bit of a difficult one because it depends on what it's feeding on. Is it having a random hoof of an animal, or is it eating an entire wildebeest? Very, very different. But they have a very slow metabolism. One of the ways they can survive for long periods without food and go under the water and slow their heart rate down. Cold-blooded things generally have slower metabolisms. So if you're talking about those big sort of crocs that benefit during the migration period, if a croc or a few crocs get to eat an entire wildebeest or zebra, they can survive potentially for 6 months, maybe even longer, without having to find food. They would obviously prefer more food, but say they can control that metabolism and reduce it to survive longer periods, particularly when there isn't a prevalence of animals around. It's very thirsty warthogs. They are having a good quench today. Hopefully we'll see them have a bit of a roll around in the mud as well. Always entertaining, and watch them having a little bit of a scratch. Amazing how fast warthogs can be. They always look like such little chunky animals with these little stumpy legs, but they can get up to huge speeds. I think sort of 50 kilometers an hour or so. And you just see this cloud of dust moving across the savannah when they get up into full pace, particularly if they're being chased by something, of course. But a huge amount of speed and a lot of momentum, and it's a very solid animal, a warthog. You certainly wouldn't want to get in the way of one of those. It would be like standing at the end of a bowling alley, I would think.
Join me for a magical safari to India, a wildly exotic land of tigers, temples, and Kipling. To start, we'll head to Pench and then to Doba to look for the famed Bengal tiger, as well as deer in the dappled forests, sloth bears, and countless birds. We'll stay in stunning eco-lodges that blend luxury with a light footprint. Our Indian adventure culminates in Agra with a sunrise visit to the Taj Mahal.
Would you like to know the difference between a male and female wildebeest? You can ask me questions like this in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature.
Step into the heart of Africa from the comfort of your home.
Female leopard tracks over here.
Join our expert guides for a live 3-hour safari where every moment is real, unscripted, and unforgettable. Ask questions.
Animals rely on their senses.
Share your thoughts and be part of the experience as we explore together. Safari Live.
If you love watching Wild Earth, here's a little tip. You'll gain access to the channel ad-free. You can rewind and rewatch sightings and gain access to our live Tuesday safaris. There's also behind the scenes videos, fireside chats, and every Safari Live episode, whenever it suits you. It's just the best way to connect with nature.
But it seems we have joined the Springbok at ablution time today. But interesting how they often all do decide to defecate at the same time. I'm sure there is an official term for it. I'm not sure whether allomimetic behavior would really suffice, but it is often the case that when one does something, they all think it's a good idea at the time. It's potentially an anti-predator method as well. If everybody does it, then everybody can flee without having to worry about an unfortunate incident. Trying to figure out what the benefit is of that very dark black stripe, because we see that sort of arrangement of lighter on the belly up to darker on the top in other antelope. Impalas are a very good example. They've got the sort of the three-tiered approach as well, which we believe is a form of counter shading, just to help the animal look less obvious and less three-dimensional. So the darker top part will be lit up by the sun, the lighter bottom part will be darkened by the shadows, and that creates more of a sort of a two-dimensional, the three-dimensional shape possibly becoming less obvious to predators. But that is a very dark stripe. I wonder what the reasoning for that is. If anyone's got any ideas, do let me know. Obviously, it can't be a sexual selection thing because we see it in both males and females. And you would have thought a dark stripe like that would absorb a lot of heat. Maybe something to do with ticks. Not that there's a huge issue of the hard-bodied ticks, at least over in Namibia. But while we consider that, I think we're going to head over and catch up with our Varose eagle and chick. Wow, it's getting big. I haven't seen this chick for a couple of weeks, and it must have tripled in size since I last saw it, beginning to develop some darker coloration. But even, of course, a juvenile Varose eagle won't develop those dark colours. I'm not sure exactly how long it takes, but not for a few years. Most of these big raptors can take 5, maybe even to 7 years before the full adult plumage is in place. But wow, so much bigger than the last time I saw it. I say him, I don't know if it's a him or a her, of course. Yeah, just look at how fluffy he is, all the feathers all the way down to the feet. Shame. Nadine's worried that the chick's going to fall off this nest, but what a safe place to grow up on the side of a cliff like this. You stretch out those wings. Actually, just reminding myself what the juveniles do look like. They actually have a lot more darker coloration than I thought they did. I think in my mind, I instantly went to sort of the crowned eagle and the martial eagle as being other large eagles that we have here, where the juveniles are much, much paler than the adults. Oh, look at that. That is so cool. No doubt off to find a little bit of food. I don't know if do we know, Nadine, if you're there, do we know the exact, or when did we first see the chick? Do we know when it did actually hatch? Just trying to get an idea of his age and when we might anticipate its first flight. think from what I can see, we're looking at about 3 months before the adults will officially sort of chase the youngster away from the area. But I'd be interested to know if we do have a vague estimate of its hatching date. So I'm just checking on my birding resources here, and according to this, it reckons by week 7, mottled brown feathers over much of the body. So I think those are beginning. So I'm going to guess around about 6 or 7 weeks. Those massive talons. Okay, end of April, May, June, coming to the end of July. So we're coming up to about 3 months. Well, maybe this one is a little bit of a slow developer. And I don't think we'll be attempting to fly anywhere just yet with all those fluffy contour feathers dominating the body. Not exactly what you need to generate lift. Ah, sorry, I misread. It looks like about 120 days it should be beginning to think about leaving. Ah, seems the laying date was the 28th of April, and then I think incubation period is around about a month and a half. So that would make sense at April, May, yeah, mid-June perhaps it was hatched. So that's about more rice. About more rice? That's terrible English, but you know what I mean. So probably about 4 to 6 weeks, about 6 weeks old at the moment, which would make sense. Julian Thomas, you're saying, yeah, that the feathers are coming through. It was lovely to see this youngster stretch out the wings, beginning to develop all those tools necessary for that wonderful existence that they're going to have. Spas, you're asking how much does a Varroa eagle chick weigh when it's grown? How could we age them? Well, age-wise, we're going to be looking at the coloration and the feathers. Certainly, in terms of weight, that I will have to double check for you. Let's see if I can find out quickly for you. Right, mass at hatching around about 100 grams, but doubles after about 4 days, up to a kilogram after about 20 days, 2 kilograms by 33 days, and 3 kilograms at 55 days, and then 3.5 kilograms by fledging. So pretty amazing, goes from 100 grams to 3,500 grams. Sorry, 3,500 grams in the space of about 3 or 4 months. Karen, you're asking, is the nest on a ledge? I assume so, Karen. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't. They certainly don't. They're not like palm swifts that have got sticky saliva and stick things to the vertical palm fronds, and then also even stick their eggs with a sticky saliva and incubate from a vertical perspective, which in itself is very strange, but an interesting way of dealing with that problem. So I'm sure there is a relatively, I don't want to say substantial, it's not something I would want to stand on probably that high up, but there will be a ledge that the adults have piled those sticks on. But I hope it's very stable. I'd imagine it's quite gusty up there as well. Melanistic marble, you are very happy that it's beginning to develop some of those darker feathers. And sparse wingspan, Well, again, I'm going to have to check for you. Can't remember all the vital statistics. Let me see if I can find it for you. 2 to 2.8 meters. So, generally speaking, and I'm sure I have no doubt that it's the same, or I know it's the same for Varro's eagle, the females will always be bigger than the males in raptors. So, maybe just over 2 meters for males and close to 3 meters for the females. And then you're asking in relation to the crowned eagle. Well, I always see the Varro's, the crowned, and the Marshalls as basically being the same size. But from a wingspan perspective, this will have a far greater wingspan than the crowned eagle. They've got quite short, stumpy wings in comparison to some of the other large raptors. Just due to their habitat, they like foresty areas along riverine vegetation where there's lots of big trees and lots of vegetation. You don't want big wings which are really designed for gliding and soaring when your preferential area is a lot more heavily vegetated. Also, with their hunting techniques of taking things like monkeys, they specialize in hunting vervet monkeys. Then you don't want to have big wings that are going to clip vegetation when you're sort of darting through the branches to grab a monkey. So much shorter wingspan for a crowned eagle. I'll have to find out exactly what their wingspan is, but I would think it's substantially less. But let's head over to Moella and see if we still have multiple zebras there. Ah, and some elephants. First time I've seen elephants here. For the record, yeah, as I thought, the crowned eagle wingspan 1.5 to only 1.7 meters, so not far off half that of a black eagle. But despite the fact that they both are about the same size, it's all due to their different habitat preference. Believe it or not, if you're just joining us, this is quite a small number of zebras from what we've been seeing over the last few weeks here at Moella. Just like we see at the other pumped waterholes, elephants taking up residence where the fresh water is being pumped out. Looks like a big illy in the background there as well. Plenty of zebras strewn out across this dry riverbed system. A couple having a little disagreement there, quite normal in groups of zebra, never the best of friends, and I see at least one wildebeest in amongst them, maybe 2, 3, yeah, a few of them there. I don't know if anyone's seen any predators on this camera. You would think with the sheer biomass of potential food that there would be the predators wouldn't be too far behind at least. Zebra's decided it's all a little bit too much. That's a very lion-esque decision to just flop. Cat Father, back to our Varro's eagle chick. You're asking, will it take its first flight with the parents, or is it going to be a solo effort? As far as I know, Cat Father, obviously I've never actually watched one fledging, so it'll be fascinating if we can see it. But as according to the literature, at least, when it is time to go, the parents will say, right, enough, and it will fly and be gone, and have to go out into the big bad world itself. And we assume that its instincts will be sufficient to enable it to hunt and to catch whatever it needs to do to survive. But I don't believe there is much in terms of any parental care once the chick leaves the nest. Spas, you're saying these the first time you've seen elephants here at Moella, and because of zebras, how common are elephants here? Spas, for me as well. Since we've had this camera, this is the first time that I personally have viewed elephants in this area. We do know, of course, Botswana has a lot of elephants, so I'm sure it's not uncommon, but it's very much seems to be the zebra camera. And Penelope Kenyon, you're loving those braying sounds of the zebra, as do I. One of my favourite noises in the bush, that sort of distant whooping that you sometimes hear. I sense there's a queue of zebras forming, waiting for the elephants to move off, but it also looks like there's a queue of elephants waiting to get into the inflow pipe, which is quite normal. Always a good way to understand the pecking order. And it looks like that.
Hi everybody, looks like we have just located on a beautiful lepidess known as Clalamba.
Right, well, we'll keep an eye in case the adult does come back with some food. I personally would love to see this little one getting fed. I've never seen a Moreau's nest out in the wild, and obviously, due to their very protected perch up there on the cliffs, not something you get to see without the benefits of these sorts of cameras. So we'll keep it. Is it eating something? Has it got some food? Before I was going to go somewhere else, but I wondered if it was trying to rip a piece of meat off, but now I think he's just having a groom. Right, let's go to Camelthorn, where apparently there are. Oh, hang on. No, I'm unsure. Let's go to Camelthorn and we'll keep an eye on what's happening. I think we're just hanging around. So I'm trying to work out if in and amongst those matted twigs, is there something furry in there? It did look as if he was maybe pulling something out, but I didn't see anything come out in the beak. Now just seems to be content having a bit of a groom, but standing very proud on his nest, though. I say his, could be her. But I would have thought that if there is food there, he would be tucking it, would let's say it, I don't want to be seen as sexist, it would be tucking in. Does look a little bit unstable. Certainly, I'm now getting worried, Nadine, that we're going to sit here and watch him tumble out the side of the nest. I wonder how often that happens. I can't imagine very often. If it did tumble out, it would probably bounce down the rocks. I mean, we see it happening with like little birds. They can survive those drops. It's got lots of nice insulating and shock absorbing downy feathers, but I would imagine that its chances of survival, if it did fall out, wouldn't be great. But let's not tempt fate. Right, have you got some food there, little one? It has, there is food there. Okay, but he seems to be struggling, and maybe it's just some skin left from a previous drop off from the parents. Takeaway was delivered. I think if there was any substantial meat product there, he would be a little bit more intent. I think that is a dussy. I think that's a foot that he keeps lifting up. It is, look, there's a dussy foot. You can see the three toes. Shame, dussy. Dibdee, you're saying not quite ready. Yeah, I agree. I'm getting slightly concerned with those stilt-like legs. They're longer than I realised. I suppose you don't really notice it with the adults. And to think that's very uneven terrain as well, that he's sort of wandering around. But there may be, say, a substantial ledge. I have no doubt that the the nest is built on a ledge, so maybe if he did tumble out the side, he would only fall the height of the nest. And then maybe he'd even be able to clamber its way back up. Just don't fall out the right-hand side would be my advice. Well, it does look as if it's say that's definitely is the remains of a Dussie, but I'm assuming that all the flesh has been picked dry and he's maybe just impatiently waiting for mum and or dad to return. But look at the way beginning to sort of groom those little primary feathers that are coming through. But let's leave the little one for a while. Let's head over to Camelthorne and catch up with some hippos and I believe some more elephants. Plenty of hippos emerging from the depths. And I imagine if this elephant is going to have a drink, is he going to come all the way to the inflow pipe, which is much closer to where the camera is? But if he's just going to have a bit of a mud bath, then I'm sure this will be fine. Or maybe he's going to have a swim. I know there was a brown hyena seen here a few weeks ago that had a very injured paw and was really struggling to get up that steep slope um, to get back up onto the top of that ridge there. I don't know if anyone has, those of you who watch these cameras a lot, whether it's been seen again. I'd be very interested to know how his paw was because it really did look like a nasty injury. My initial thought was that something was broken in there. It wasn't just a twist or a sprain or a muscular problem. It looked like a broken limb. I wonder if it has been back since. If anyone knows, do let me know. There's a hippo in the background having a roll. We just saw some feet sticking out of the water. Quite what these hippos are eating. I'm really not sure. There doesn't look to be much there.
This is an unbelievable afternoon. Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word! She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh! Whoa. This is action-packed.
Out here, every moment counts. As a Wild Earth explorer, you won't miss a thing. Watch the Wild Earth channel ad-free 24/7 and rewind if you want to catch something again. Enjoy behind-the-scenes videos, fireside chats, and early access to travel offers. It's the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
Often there's quite a few hippos sunning themselves on that sandbank opposite, and then we have another group up there to the left, but evidently these ones have moved off. Whether that water is becoming a little bit too shallow now, I'm not sure, but it is being constantly fed from that pipe. You can see how it's eroded away a little inflow channel. Yeah, well, to our chick. Be very cool if one of the parents does return with some food. Just doing a little bit of nest maintenance. So there's some pretty substantial branches that have gone into building that nest. I mean, if you look at that one on the far right, the thickest one, I mean, that's a big stick. Not only would that be relatively heavy, although it's a strong bird, I've no doubt that it can pick it up, but it must be really awkward to fly and manipulate and place in the correct manner for the nest. Very nice. You can actually see its ear openings as well. Remember, if we see things like owls, we often get confused by those little tufty things on the top of their heads that look like ears, which are not. Even with owls, they are just there to as sort of disruptive markings to break up the outline of the body, and you can see those ears, which are basically just holes in the side of the head. There is no external pinnae. I've just had a vision of birds with external ears. But nice to see them before they are properly covered up by all the adult feathers. Where the wings are sort of flopping open. All right, let's head back up to Kenya and Oldonyo for a little bit. Ah, lovely. Some eland and the lone giraffe as well, but always nice to see some eland. Saw a lovely big bull here the other day. Great dewlap flopping from side to side as he walked. This, I think, is also a bull. Yeah, there's his dewlap. You can really see the bulk. Look at the size of the nest, the four quarters there. It really is a magnificent animal. And so there must be incredible power in those legs, the joints, the ligaments, the tendons, for their ability to be able to jump 2, maybe even 3 meters vertically over things. Bearing in mind that a big eland bull like this, although he's not the biggest bull you'll ever see, can weigh up to 800 or 900 kilograms, nearly a ton. Certainly our largest antelope. Can beginning, yes, you're saying the animals at Oldonyo are taking the opportunity to get to the water before the elephants come back. I'm sure they'll be back in their numbers. And say maybe if we're lucky, one ton will also join. That would be nice to see. That's interesting. Eagle lover. Good name, bearing in mind your comment. You're saying you used to monitor the Rudderkrantz black eagles, but you're saying this chick is pushing the edge of the nest. Yeah, well, let's all collectively encourage him or her to stay in this more central area of the nest just to be on the safe side. And always beautiful to watch a giraffe drink. think this is the first time that I've seen a small group of eland actually be able to come and drink unimpeded by elephants. I'm very happy for them as well. Nice to get some close-ups of them. They've actually got beautiful, quite soft faces, almost cow-like in a way. And I seem to be struggling for actual sound coming through this camera today, but I would really love to hear that characteristic clicking of the male eland. It's if you've never heard it, it is a very unusual sound. It seems rather alien. Said to emanate from the knees or the front knees of the male elands when they're walking, perhaps something to do with the tendons sort of clicking over the joints there. And generally, the bigger and more dominant the eland, the louder the click, and it is seen as sort of a status symbol. More and more giraffe drifting in, bit of a shift change. Look at his bulk, look at his front legs, his enormous shoulder muscles, and the size of the neck compared to the females. You can certainly see why they were held in such high regard traditionally within African tribal culture. It's the focus of much rock art and up in the stars as well. Various references to eland in the night sky and African cultural star lore. And speaking from experience, very easy to get their hooves confused or their tracks confused with that of a buffalo. Both have those rather rounded cloven hooves, but the big difference is the overlap of the toes. You'll find that one of the hoofs kind of overlaps the other ones. You always have like a longer one and a shorter one, whereas the buffalo create a much more smooth transition between those two toenails. We just saw him have a little investigation of the female there, but I don't think anything of too much interest. So I didn't see him do a phlegm and grimace to access that vomeronasal organ. Maybe just checking up on things. You can see some ticks there on the sort of in the armpit region as well. Brian, you're asking how fast can hippos run? Believe it or not, sort of in excess of 30 kilometers an hour, maybe a little bit more, despite those stumpy little legs. That being said, there have been cases of people outrunning hippos, but I think you probably run faster than you think you can if you are getting chased by something like that. But considering the short little legs, they can gain quite a rate of knots, certainly. Cat fan, you say that you know that the wildebeest is often said to be made up of spare parts, where you think the same is true of the eland. Shame, poor eland. But it looks like a sort of a cross between a kudu and a cow and a buffalo and a few other things, certainly. But you can certainly see the similarities between in the facial features and the neck of a kudu and an inyala, but they all do fall within the same tribe. Amongst the antelopes, the Traglaphini tribe, the spiral horned antelopes. You can see those characteristic twists and turns. And Moonbeam Smith, you're asking, do those black patches on their elbows have any other functions? I've also wondered that, Moonbeam Smith, but I don't know of any specific functions other than, as you said, that it just being a marking. The only thing I can assume that it's a little bit like we see on zebras, that if they lie down and tuck their front legs underneath themselves. That to me looks as if it would line up quite close to where the hoof would be. And being black and having more melanin, the hair there would be a bit tougher because melanin is a very strong pigment. So possibly, maybe, gives some protection to the fur from the constant sort of grating of the hoof if they were standing up and lying down. That's the only thing that I can think of particularly. Again, if anybody else has got any theories, please feel free to share. Always willing to learn, and people think differently and have a different thought process. So, yeah, share if you have any insights. But he's very regal, this bull. He's still got a bit of growing to go, though. That dewlap is not particularly pronounced yet. They can be much, much bigger and floppier than that. Very important in terms of thermoregulation. Lots of blood vessels there catching the breeze, cooling the blood, and sending that cooled blood around the body.
For years, we've shared virtual wildlife. Now, let's experience it for real. I'm Lauren Arthur, and I'd love to show you my amazing home here in the Greater Kruger of South Africa. This 5-night journey is an exclusive connection to my piece of untamed Africa. I live here in these gorgeous landscapes surrounded by epic wildlife. The wild is calling, so come and join me.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
My full name is Cedric Leslie Dold. I grew up mostly here in the Lowveld. I grew up here pretty much on the southern side of Kruger National Park, a place called Marlow Park, for most of my years. Something surprising about myself, I did play drums in a band for many years. Best sighting I presented, we found Palumba and the 2 cubs, and the cubs are just way big.
Welcome to Safari Spotlight. We'll be
And you pretend like you're a serviceman, eh?
Got no idea what's going on this reserve.
Expecting the unexpected.
Are we stuck down there?
What am I trying to do? So we have another giant of Mabula.
That was incredible.
This is unbelievable.
It's going to be a spectacular afternoon.
Okay, I think we're going to quickly pop over to Lentor in Kenya. Sounds like we've got a raptor on camera. Let's hope he sticks around for a moment. Ooh, who have we got here? Again, I have to be careful because my bird knowledge of Kenya is not particularly good, but with that very yellow eye. I can see those white legs. I'm guessing an African hawk eagle or similar. There is also something called an Ayers hawk eagle as well, which I have never seen. They look very, very similar to the African hawk eagle. I'm not sure whether they occur up in Kenya, or I'll have to double check the distribution for those. But I have never knowingly seen an Ayers hawk eagle. They look very, very similar, but are just a little bit smaller. There are some other subtle differences as well. But the Ayers hawk eagle would normally have a bit more of a crest, and I see no evidence of a crest. So I'm going to stick with the African hawk eagle. Pretty confident that is the case. Everything else seems to. Oh, he's got something. What have you got? Did he get a ground squirrel? Possibly sort of. It's like a bushy tail. I wonder if he's got one of our little ground squirrels that we often see beavering around, foraging around on the edges of the water here. Shame for the ground squirrel, but pretty amazing to see. They do usually form monogamous pairs, like most raptors do here. And an interesting thing about the African hawk eagle is that they have often been recorded hunting cooperatively, where one will try and flush game birds and things, and the other one will take advantage of it. But also well known for taking things out in and around waterholes. So I'm sure that this poor little ground squirrel was just minding his own business and was descended upon by this hawk eagle, but pretty amazing to see. Shane Mika, I'm sorry you're finding this a little bit distressing. Yes, his mouth is open and probably going, ah, at the moment of impact. Shame to see those little fingers. It's always difficult to watch something like this. It's often is the case that everybody wants to see a kill, and then if you actually do experience one, the majority of us find it sounds like a good idea at the time, but to actually see it is quite a harrowing experience at times. The only thing that I suppose would be is good here, that I would imagine that death would have been fairly instantaneous. If it dropped down, just the impact of the weight of the bird would probably have done enough, and those razor-sharp talons would have inflicted a great deal of damage very, very quickly. I see, in all the excitement, I've missed quite a few questions and comments. Spas, can we say is a male or a female eland by the colour of the skin? Yes, male elands are usually darker and normally get darker with age, but again, never say never. It's a pretty good rule of thumb, but normally male elands are darker than females. Justin Thomas, you're agreeing it is an African hawk eagle. And Sebastian, do I know what else would be on the diet of African hawk eagles here at Lentor? No, but I can make some educated guesses that So small mammals such as this, there'll be lizards, other small birds. Don't think there's anything necessarily specific from this area, but they have a very varied diet. Potentially even some insects. I mean, everything will eat little alates and things during the summer. Potentially even small monkeys. I'm just reading the information I've got here. Rodents, mongooses, fruit bats, bush babies, young vervet monkey, maybe even klipspringer lambs, plated lizards, monitor lizards, scavengers, carrion. They're fairly unselective by the looks of things. Wildlife lady also saying an amazing sighting, and yes, whether it's the squirrel that we often see, I don't know. We'll hope not. But I've seen a couple of them here, so we'll see what happens. If we only see one turning up now, then yeah, shame. Julian Thomas, you're saying it would be amazing to see an Ayers hawk eagle, but do you think it would have darker markings below, including the thighs? Yes, I agree. It has the crest and has a lot more sort of flecking on those thighs, so you can see very, very whitish thighs here. So it's not an Ayers hawk eagle. So by all accounts, they do occur here in the Kruger area, but I am yet to see one, and in a lot of South Africa, actually. I always double check. But I've never been able to substantiate it as of yet. It would be a nice one to tick off. It's one of those ones that I keep thinking would be great to see. I don't get very many lifers these days, but it is one that I keep an eye out for. Deb D, you're saying, lovely raptor. Dark Mane lover, you love the raptors. And Mr. UAE87, you're agreeing that it is a ground squirrel. Yes, we've unfortunately seen more than we needed to. Little fingers, heads, big bushy tail. No doubt that was past tense a ground squirrel. I see Bundu, one of our zoomies, you're also saying that you hope it's not one of the frequently seen little resident ground squirrels. I think, unfortunately, the likelihood is that it was, considering where this incident has taken place. It is rather harrowing to watch, but if he wasn't able to get food, then the hawk eagle would die a slow death of starvation, which we wouldn't want either. So very much a circle of life, and we do have to sometimes take a more objective view to these sorts of things. But this has certainly given me a renewed interest in keeping an eye out for an Ayers hawk eagle. So I'm just checking its distribution. So yeah, anything sort of north of Gauteng here in South Africa would be their distribution range. So it definitely should be in these areas. But it is rare and considered near threatened, although I admit my app is probably a little out of date now.
This unfolds in front of you.
What does it take to handle the wild? Balance. Determination. Focus.
Yaku!
and gear that can take a beating so you don't have to. My full name is Cedric Leslie Dold. The best driver at Wild Earth, it is me. I believe I'm the best driver. I think so because I've. Best part of my job, I say, is just to try and look out for these animals, track them down. I love tracking animals. I love looking for, fresh tracks, and if you can find them, it's just at the moment of accomplishment. If I wasn't a presenter for Wild Earth, I would be the drummer for AC/DC.
Out here, every wild moment matters, and as a Wild Earth explorer, you won't miss a thing. Watch the Wild Earth channel, ad-free 24/7, where you can even rewind and watch something again. Get access to behind-the-scenes videos, fireside chats, and access to early travel offers. It is the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
I can't say whether that's the same, but that jizz, that general impression of shape and size, is quite obvious in a hawk eagle with that black and white contrasting marking. Not the only thing, of course, to have a bright yellow eye. Marshals also have a bright yellow eye, as do the snake eagles. Sue van der Merwe, you're also saying that you're looking at the pictures of the auger buzzard as well. Yeah, also has black and white markings. I didn't actually even consider it an auger buzzard. I'm going to have to double check the auger buzzard. Problem is we don't get those, I don't think, in southern Africa. And therefore I don't have a picture of one to compare it, but I do know they occur... Oh, sorry, what am I talking about? Sorry, we do get auger buzzards here. I was getting myself confused. Or just, having said that, just right in the top northern part of the country. But the auger buzzard, Sue, doesn't have that bright yellow eye. It has more of a sort of a dark red coloured eye. But I agree, black and white markings quite similar. Dark Mane Lover, you're saying nature at its finest. Yep, it can be brutal. But this is what it's all about. This is what these animals have to do to survive. Dark Mane Lover was saying the eagle has a bottomless pit of the stomach. I'll say not the biggest meal it will ever have, a ground squirrel, but much welcome and needed protein. Mr. Elemental, yes, you worry that there may be some baby squirrels relying on them for food. It is always a possibility, unfortunately. But yeah, as we said, it's nature at its brutal finest. I think one of the most disturbing things I remember in my early guiding career, I've seen it happen on a couple of occasions now, but the first time it happened was a little distressing. Certainly was watching a leopard in the Sabi Sands take out a daker and then promptly disemboweled it and removed a fetus from it and proceeded to eat the whole thing in front of us, hooves, head. It was still soft enough, the bones hadn't hardened yet, and it demolished the entire fetus. But that was a bit of a reality check, wake-up call that nature is and can be pretty gruesome, but it's what happens behind closed doors, and that's the whole point of coming out to view these animals and seeing what they do in their natural habitat. But yeah, it's a lot harsher than a lot of people realise when they actually see it firsthand. It certainly isn't hanging around with eating everything he can, but again, that's a good strategy. Birds do have a crop. He may be filling the crop to keep some of it for later, but if you dawdle too long, something will come and take your food, and then all of your hunting efforts were in vain. So it does benefit to try and eat as much as possible, as quickly as possible. Mawiti, you're asking, is it a hawk or a falcon? It's a African hawk eagle. So it's sort of in between a hawk and an eagle. I'm not quite sure from a taxonomical standpoint, but we would consider it a true eagle in generic terms based on the fact that you can see feathers right the way down to the tarsi, to the feet. That's one of the features that we look for in terms of identifying what we sort of colloquially call a true eagle. I think the majority of the true eagles also share the genus Aquila as well, which means eagle, of which there is a constellation in the sky representing an eagle as well, the great eagle of Zeus that carried his thunderbolts and persecuted Prometheus for stealing fire from the gods and giving to man, that was ultimately killed by Hercules to rescue Prometheus. Hercules is in that area of sky as well, the constellation, along with a little constellation called Sagitta, the arrow, which is the arrow from his bow that actually ended Aquila's life. Bundu, you're saying we shouldn't get attached to our little critters that we see daily. I agree with you, Bundu. We shouldn't get attached to them because this can happen and it can be unpleasant. But it's hard not to. I certainly speak from experience when you work at the same place for a while and you watch cubs or youngsters be born and you watch them being raised and then something terrible happens to them. It can be quite distressing. We know we shouldn't, but it's very hard not to, certainly. I think I've told this story before, but I remember with the Southern Pride when I was working at Sabi Sabi for 4 years, I watched them daily when they were around, at least, and became very, very attached to them. And then after I left, I had the opportunity to go and do some freelance guiding at another lodge in the Sands, and I saw the Tembe Pride. They came out of their sort of standard territory because there was a hippo carcass which had obviously attracted their attention, and it was so great for me. I was really happy to catch up for them. It felt like meeting up with some old friends, and I still to this day feel aggrieved. I don't know if it's the right word, but I have no right to be, that whilst I was parked close to them and talking to guests and explaining what was happening, there was a part of me that really wanted or was disappointed that one of them at least didn't sort of stop and look up with a sort of a vague sense of familiarity at my voice, because they'd been listening to it for years on an almost daily basis. And I do remember feeling a little bit put back that I hadn't been recognised, which is stupid, but just goes to show we do get attached to these sorts of things. And I've not gonna lie, I've shed a tear when a leopard cub has been killed by another male. It's difficult not to get attached, but we shouldn't. Spas, you're asking about the Varroes. Is that one of the true eagles? Yes, you can even see on that chick that we've been viewing, feathers all the way down to the legs. I was actually just doing a quick check of all the eagles that I know of that do have those feathers down to the legs. The majority of them are indeed Aquila. The only exceptions, I think, are the crowned eagle, which has a different genus, and the marshal, which has a different genus. But all the other, what I would call true eagles, the African hawk eagle, the lesser spotted eagle, the greater spotted eagle, the steppe eagle, the tawny eagle, the Varroes eagle, they all have the genus Aquila. Deb D, you said you're always trying to rescue helpless animals, and you had a mouse in a shoebox in your bedroom, which didn't go down very well with your mum. um, yeah, well, we've all been there. Deb D, I rescued a couple of baby squirrels a few years ago that had fallen out of the nest and tried to keep them warm. But they didn't unfortunately make it. I also found a bird here not that long ago, which I assume had flown into a window and didn't look in a very good state. And it was placed in a box with some water and some food and some blankets, but it didn't last the night either. So yeah, it's always difficult, but I think it's just in the majority of people's nature to try and help these sorts of things. All right, but this has been a pretty amazing sighting, not something you see every day. Our sympathies to the ground squirrel and its family members, but great that this African hawk eagle has had a nice meal. Sounds like we've got a nice big herd of ellies coming down for a drink at Naledi Dam. Let's go have a look there. Wow, nice big group all clustered around the little well there of water. But a few other comments, lots of people commenting on that amazing sighting. Cat fan, you're saying it was a rare sighting. I agree, a very rare sighting indeed. Mr. Elemental saying the eagle's got pretty long legs. And I was also thinking about the little Varro's chick that we saw as well, but I think we don't generally see it once they've developed all their adult feathers. They're hidden rather well, but very, very strong legs for poaching and for hunting. Ooh. Engage traction control, everyone. Mr. Elementor, you're saying you thought Mr. Squirrel thought he was safe under the tree. Yes, he probably did. Ooh. Darkmane lover, you're saying you also shed a few tears when the Avoca Darkmane male was died from those injuries in the buffalo attack. I remember that well. Up on Juma, it was difficult to see, certainly, but yeah, unfortunately, that is the way of it. That is the way of things. But it is sad, and why we don't get so sympathetic towards the poor buffaloes that lose their life to lions the whole time. It's because we tend to recognise those individual animals, territorial animals like lions and leopards, and we do build up a rapport with them. But it's wild, it's natural, and these things unfortunately do happen. Wildlife lady was saying gorgeous elephants and looks a bit crowded. Yeah, looks like the main body of the herd has moved on a little bit now. But again, there's a perfectly good waterhole just to the left, but everybody preferring that fresher water. Julian Thomas, you're asking what the bird call is in the background. I was also listening to that, Julian, and I'm going to go with, it's one of the robins, I'm fairly confident, either white-browed or possibly bearded scrub robins. We have a general saying out here that if you're not sure, it's probably a white-browed scrub robin because they have so many different calls. The pitch, however, is very robin-like, so I would go white-browed scrub robin, but I would like to also go and double-check the bearded scrub robin just to be on the safe side, but I would say one of the two. Might be more inclined to go bearded, just because I don't recognise that as the white-browed scrub robin. This one having a good scratch, waiting for everybody else to leave. That was at least very thoughtful of this one. Cat fan, you're saying elephantastic, and you love Ellies and they've made your day. Nice little comical interlude.
My name is Amy, and today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
This is what they call a shambi, a family, a whole herd of elephants.
But nature is beyond amazing. Nature is just everything.
We'd love to hear from you. Questions, comments about biology, Africa, safari.
She's using her tail like a monkey.
Safari, wine, and waterfalls. The ultimate African adventure. Sip South Africa's finest wines. Experience a world-class safari among Africa's iconic wildlife. And stand in front of Victoria Falls, one of the natural wonders of the world. All this can be yours with Wild Earth Travel, where Africa comes alive.
This is one of the bigger herds that I remember seeing coming through, and as usual one of the younger bulls at the back, one of the teenagers, keeping his distance, acting kind of cool away from the rest of the family. Ivan, that's an interesting question. Correlation between eye colour in birds and whether they have keener eyesight. I don't believe it has anything to do with how what's the word I want? How good the eyesight is, how good it is at picking up detail. But most of the time, the colours of a bird's eye has to do with other oils, and you'll often find that depending on their food source, those oils almost act like a filter, enabling them to see specific colours better, helping them to identify potential food sources. So I'm not saying that's the case all the time. But I know it has been recorded that sometimes those sort of oily droplets, that I don't want to call it pigmentation, I don't think it is pigmentation, it's an oily substance that will actually potentially help a bird locate its food of choice. It'll stick out more obviously to them. But in terms of how acute the vision is, that is going to be down to the number of visual receptor cells in the body, which is immense in birds compared to us. I'm speaking from memory here, and I very much stand to be corrected, but I think we have about 200,000 visual cells in a standard human eye, whereas things like raptors that have exceptional vision have over 1 million. So more than 5 times better at seeing finer details over longer distances. They also, of course, have multiple other adaptations. They have what's called a pecten in the back of the eye, which is a specialized organ which delivers more oxygenated blood to the bird's eye to allow the eye to work more efficiently. This is something you can do yourself if you make your fingers into like a little tiny aperture, a little circle, and hold it in front of your eye and wiggle your finger around. Very quickly, you start to see almost like shadows or little silhouettes or spots within your vision, because you're asking your eye to function really efficiently, going light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, and your eye starts to sort of crash a little bit. All right, let's quickly go to Serendella, and then I will continue on with that. Yeah, some more illies. So if you're asking your eye to do a lot of work and a lot of interpretation, it can kind of overload itself and the optic nerve can't handle it. So that pecten at the back of birds' eyes avoids that from happening. Because you imagine you're a little bird, you're seeing the world pretty quickly anyway, and you're flying in and amongst vegetation, through branches, through leaves, you're going into light shadow the whole time. If you started to see spots and got a little bit confused, you will very quickly fly into a tree or into the ground, which you would not want to happen. So that additional organ very much benefits them. And then in a lot of species, they have two foveas, and in a lot of the raptors, which are the focusing areas on the retina. We've just got one at the back, so we have to look directly at something to get good focus, but quite a few raptors, things like falcons, definitely have a secondary fovea, so they can focus on things close to them and sort of on their peripheries and things far ahead. Because if you are pursuing a bird, you want to be able to focus on the bird and also make sure you don't crash if you're flying in and amongst vegetation. So bird's eyes do have lots of specific adaptations, but the colour, to my knowledge, will not have any impact on the resolution or the acuteness of the vision. Nicholas, you're asking, is it true that elephant urine has any medicinal benefits? Not that I'm aware of, Nicholas, if I'm honest. However, elephant dung, for example, has been used or is still used in traditional medicines. I believe the rationale behind that is because the elephant's ability or has the ability to self-medicate itself, and it will purposely choose things to eat that it feels that it is requiring. There is the belief that a lot of these self-medicated items will pass through the gut, and that potentially it almost is seen as a, dare I say, like an all-purpose antibiotic. Chances are, if there is something wrong with you, maybe there'll be something that might fix you within the dung of an elephant. I've never heard of anything to do with elephant urine specifically. It is one of those things that said if you're really struggling for water out in the bush, you can squeeze out elephant or rhino dung and actually drink the moisture. I strongly would not recommend you do that. There will still be plenty of bacteria and things in there. Chances are, if you were struggling for water and you drank that, you would end up with a nasty case of diarrhea, which would dehydrate you much more quickly. I suppose you could potentially filter it somehow and it would be better than nothing. But I don't know of any specific medicinal uses of elephant urine. But there are some unusual things in African tribal culture and medicines, so it is possible. To Disco's Dave, good name. You're also pointing out that many birds have 4 colour cones or 4 colour receptors in the eyes, those cone cells, the 4th one being able to see ultraviolet light. Yep, completely agree with you. There's lots of studies that have been done on that, and you can actually go online and find out what certain birds look like under ultraviolet light as opposed to under just a standard visual light, and you'll see they look very, very different. So even what looks like a relatively drab bird to our eyes to another bird will look far more exciting because of the ultraviolet spectrum. So yeah, thank you to Disco's Dave. I forgot about the UV adaptation, but yeah, very much so, and used for hunting in many bird species as well. Very well documented in things like kites and other birds of prey that will, by seeing an ultraviolet light, it causes things like urine trails of rodents to very much show up. Very difficult to spot a rodent in some long grass, but because they generally use what we call runs, they have those sort of typical pathways that they follow. Those pathways are highlighted by the constant dribbling of urine from those rodents, and will be very obvious to a hovering bird that can then look for things moving on top of that, almost like a sort of fluorescent running track that's been produced, and help them locate prey that would otherwise be very hard to see. Cat fan, it sounds like you may have to leave us. I'm sorry about that, but thanks for your questions and comments, and likewise to you. Have a great rest of your day. We do have about 10 or 12 minutes left, so still plenty of time for some interesting things to happen. It'd be nice to see these two bulls at Serendella and Thornybush here in the Greater Kruger, not an area we get, or not a camera that I seem to visit very often, but it sounds like there's more stuff happening up at Ordonyo, so let's head back up to Kenya. It's a wrinkly behind of an elephant. It assumes he's already had a drink. I wonder if we're going to see him have a bit of a dust bathe.
I met this remarkable rhino bull, whose name is Samson, last year in a place of extraordinary beauty, history and story. I'm going back there to see him in October, and I think you should come with me to his mysterious mountain fastness.
Dihamba ehlathini elikhulu, diphula-phula amazwi omoya, indlovu zilula ngengoma, livakala
If you love watching Wild Earth, here's a little tip. Become a member. You can gain access to the channel ad-free, you can rewind and re-watch sightings, and you can join our Tuesday live safaris. There's also behind the scenes videos, fireside chats, and every Safari Live episode, whenever you want it. It's just a better way to stay connected to nature.
Right, let's head back over to Lentor and see if our hawk eagle is still demolishing that poor ground squirrel. Yeah, still going. Not going to be much left of that. You can see him taking the last little bit of flesh off the legs there. Nothing being wasted. But this sighting really has stolen the show. I particularly enjoyed catching up with the Varro's eagle chick, just because I haven't seen him for a few weeks, and see how much it's grown. But this is not something you see every day, despite the slightly macabre nature of the sighting. Pretty amazing. Look at how swollen the crop is. You can see that big lump on his in his throat now. So that'll be the crop, which is storing food, just allowing him to eat as much as possible, so he doesn't lose out on the scavengers, and he'll be able to swallow that properly a little bit later. In a lot of cases, there are some digestive enzymes that will be released from within that crop and just help to sort of tenderize the food and begin that digestive process. But that is a very, very swollen crop. We often see it with vultures and things at kill sites, but that is a marked difference from when we were looking at this bird 10 minutes ago or so. Obviously the stomach is now full, and the crop is acting as a bit of an overflow. Mahesh, you're enjoying the beautiful colours. They're sort of bluish. Yeah, it's more of a black, but it does change the way that the layers of keratin within those feathers do often give those darker colours more of a shimmer. Beautiful eyes these things have got. Yep, Darkmane Lover, there's not much left. There's just the occasional little bone that we're seeing now. As I say, nothing going to waste. No point expending the energy and the time it took to hunt and then leave stuff behind. Look, even plucking the fur out of the tail. Might be a little bit of meat along the tail there that's worth having. See how efficient that beak is. I mean, there's handfuls of fur coming off each time it rips away there. Wildlife Lady, I'm glad you've enjoyed today's live at the waterhole. I will of course pass on your thanks if they haven't received it already to FC and the Zoomies. And yeah, I'm sure we will see you again soon. And thank you for telling me to enjoy the night skies. It is forecast to be a little bit cloudy over the next couple of days. I'm hoping that this little front that is coming through doesn't hang around too long. I've got some plans for some new photography targets, which I'll be wanting to look at over the coming weeks. Darkmane Lover also thanking everybody, Wild Earth, Africam, who of course we are in have agreements with to allow us to use these amazing cameras, and to our zoomies. Great sightings, great camera sightings. Have a wonderful day as well to you, Dark Rain Lover. But it has been a nice varied show today. Nice to see some elephants at Muella, and the zebra, of course. Standard elephant and giraffe showing at Oldonio, but also really nice to see the eland up close up there for a decent period of time. Catch up with our Varroa chick, as I said, but this is by far and away, I think, the standout sighting of the day. Just shows you never know what you're going to get. Deb T, you're welcome. I'm glad you've enjoyed the show as well, and Melanistic Marble as well. Looks like you're all heading off. Oh, how cool was that, looking straight down the camera? Oh, you even saw the nictitating membrane sweeping across the eye then, from the inner part of the eye to the outer part. Oh, making some space. Ladybird Bessie also commenting on that full crop. Yeah, the huge bulbous crop that he's got at the moment. And Penelope Kenyon as well, you're saying awesome last sighting. Thanks to everybody, and thanks to you, and thanks to everybody else for joining us and for your comments and questions. It has been a very, very cool show, but we are within the last minute now, so we will have to leave you shortly. But remember, you can still catch up with our cameras whenever you can. Sparse, you've also enjoyed the show, the elephants, the zebras, the giraffe, the eland, the Varroa eagle. Yeah, whatever your plans are for the next, the rest of your Tuesday, I hope they are excellent and that we have given you some great joy with these amazing pictures. But that's about it, everybody. Have a great day, and we will catch up with you very, very soon.
Welcome to Safari Spotlight. We're heading on a journey through some of South Africa's loveliest nature havens. We'll discover some interesting fauna and flora while being astounded by Africa's beauty. Our locations are unique and diverse, with jaw-dropping landscapes and fascinating wildlife. At the cutting edge of conservation and ecotourism. If you like what you see on Safari Spotlight, you can visit these wild and special places. We'll send you on a dream safari.